All right, we're going to start by adding a new class here. We're going to call it array q. Now, first we should declare an array of integers. So private integer array, we call it items and set it to a new array of 5 elements. Now, it would be nicer if we had a constructor where we could get this initial capacity. So we don't have to hard code it here. So let's add a constructor, public array q, which gets a capacity parameter. And we use this to allocate memory for our array. So new int of capacity. And then we remove this bit over here. Good. Now let's implement the enqueue method. So public void enqueue, which gets an item. Here we need the rear pointer, the pointer that determines where in our array we should insert this new item. So let's declare a private integer called rear. And then we set items of rear to this new item. Next, we should increment the rear, so we can do it right here. That's good. Now, what if our queue gets full? Well, we need another field to keep track of the number of items in the queue. So let's declare another field, private integer count. Now, every time we add a new item to our queue, we should also increment count. But first, we should check to see if count equals items.length. That means our queue is full, so we throw an exception of type illegal state exception. Now, it would be nicer if you had a custom exception like queue full exception, just like Stack Overflow exception. But that's beyond the scope of this course. I'm just throwing ideas. Now let's test this method. So back to our main class. Let's create a queue object. So look, I'm not typing the full name of the class. I simply typed a queue. This is a quick way to get auto-completion in your code. So AQ, we call this queue and set it to a new AQ. Now let's set the initial capacity to 5. Here we're going to call the enqueue method and pass a few numbers, 10, 20, and 30. Finally, let's print the queue on the console. So print queue. But we should go back to our queue class and overwrite the toString method. That is pretty easy. So public string toString. We should add the overwrite annotation. And finally, we're going to use the arrays class to convert our items array to a string. So we pass that here and finally return the result. Let's test our program. So our items are stored at the right positions. Beautiful. Here we have 2 empty spaces for 2 additional items. Now let's implement the dequeue method. So after enqueue, we type public int dequeue. We don't need any parameters. We simply remove and return the item at the front of this queue. So here we need another pointer. Let's declare that over here, private integer front. Back to our dequeue method. We want to return items of front, and then we want to increment the front pointer. Now, even though this implementation works, I want to change it a little bit. I want to clear the item at this position. I want to set it to 0 because this will make it easier for us to visualize what is inside the array. So instead of returning immediately, I'm going to store the item at the front in this variable. Then I'm going to set that item to 0 to clear it. Next, I'm going to increment count. So next time we call the dequeue method, we remove the item at the front. We can also do that here. That is better. Finally, we return the item. Now, back to the main class. Let's call the dequeue method and store the result over here and then print it on the console. Let's see what we get. So we dequeued 10, as you can see, that is cleared, beautiful. If we call dequeue one more time, 20 is going to be removed. So let's give it a shot. queue.dequeue, run the program. Now 20 was the item at the front and it's cleared over here. Beautiful. Now back to the queue class. You forgot to decrement count here. So count minus minus. Now this implementation has a problem. Let me show you. So back to the main class. We have added 3 items and removed 2 of them. So currently we have 1 item in our queue, and given that our queue has a capacity for 5 items, we should be able to add 4 extra items to this queue. But that is not going to work. Let me show you. So let's run the program one more time to see what we have. We have 30 over here. If we add 2 more items, they're going to appear at these positions. Let's give it a shot. So I'm going to add 40 and then 50. Let's run the program one more time. Here they are. Beautiful. What if we add 60? We got an exception as we expected. However, look at the type of this exception. It's array index out of bounds exception. But we were supposed to throw an illegal state exception. So what happened to that? Well, back to the queue class. Even though we're using count to keep track of the number of items in the queue, we have a problem with how we are setting the rear pointer. So after we insert the 5th item, rear is going to be set to 5. And that is the reason why we got this exception. Because our array has a capacity of 5, so that means the index of items in this array are going to be from 0 to 4. So rear is now pointing outside of our array. In the next video, I'm going to show you how to solve this problem using circular arrays.